This is Rostra, the St. Theodore Guerin Junior Classical League podcast, where we bring the lessons of classical study into the light for the benefit of all.
We're back on Rostra with Isabel Riley, one of our first-year Latin students, and you know what? I just got to stop saying this because I'm sick of saying it. I say it on every episode that I'm so excited about whatever topic the student has come up with, and it is legitimately the case. I am excited and so excited about yours. It's really, really cool. Tell us what it is we're going to be talking about in this episode.
Ancient Roman and Greek music.
Ancient Roman and Greek music. Okay, so first of all, why did you pick that? There's so many things you could have explored in the ancient world, and you chose music.
Well, I just love music, and I'm kind of a choir girl, and I wanted to know more about the early forms of it. And also, you hear a lot about how the ancient Romans influenced politics, architecture, but you don't really hear much about ancient Roman music in general studies.
Right, what was the deal with their music and how it also influenced music going forward? Because like you say, you do hear about the influence on politics and architecture. We've had some episodes about that, specifically on architecture and fashion and so forth. So it'd be interesting for us to hear about the music. Now, I've got to ask the personal question. You say you're a choir girl. I was a choir guy growing up in high school and in college. So my vocal part was always baritone, bass. I really could sing bass as well. What is your vocal part?
I'm an alto.
You're an alto. Okay, very, very good. So very often it seems like the sopranos and the tenors get together, and then the altos and the baritone basses get together. So I appreciate your vocal part there. Okay, so I'm sorry, but ancient Roman music, we obviously don't have any recordings of this stuff, right? I mean, nobody was setting up an iPhone in the Roman Forum recording music. So how on earth do we even know anything about this?
Well, we actually don't have too much remains of sheet music from ancient Rome, but we do have instruments we kind of dug up and stuff like that. So
we do, and not only instruments that we have dug up, as you say, from archaeology. You've got paintings, sometimes scenes that are painted on vases. You've got mosaics, so you've got other pictures of instruments and so forth. But I got to be honest, I could look at a picture of a violin, and that's not going to tell me how to play it. So how have we gotten any kind of information, or are we just guessing at this stuff, or what have you found out about that?
Well, I feel a lot of the instruments are kind of the same as ours. There's this one called the tibia.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a flute or clarinet. There were two of them, but it was kind of the same thing as a clarinet as far as how you play it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's a cornu that's basically a horn that's big and G-shaped, and you kind of play it like a tuba. So.
Yes. So you're certainly thinking about wind instruments there, and let's be honest. How many ways are there to make wind into music, right? You just blow wind through a tube of some sort. I mean, so not a lot really has changed, and I think that's a key thing. Whether you're playing flute or clarinet or any of the brass instruments or so forth, you're fundamentally going back to styles of items. They're not really machines, but just styles of physical things we've crafted back to the ancient world, and you're just blowing air through it, and then regulating that with holes and so forth and so forth. Do we know anything? What do we know, or do we know anything about percussion?
Yeah, so there was this thing called timbra that was a rattle.
Okay.
And it was there are little beads in it that they shook like a baby rattle almost.
Literally what I was thinking about was a baby rattle. Right? It's exactly the same sort of thing. And of course, it doesn't take a genius to smack something and notice there's a sound that comes out of it. And I smack something else, hey, that sound is a little bit different, and next thing you know, we're off to the races. We've got percussion. So we got the instruments. We know there's similarities there with modern instruments and so forth. What about influences of ancient music on anything past the ancient world? So do we have a sense of that? Is there a sense in which composers of a later era have taken tips and ideas from the ancients?
Yeah, so actually, there was this thing that was like an opera in the ancient world. It's like ancient Greek comedies and tragedies. That's basically what inspired operas. And then there was also this thing that was like kind of like a ballet with like singing and dancing. I think it's called a pantomimus.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So, and it is so cool because as I think about it, obviously I love this stuff or I wouldn't be teaching it. But you think about that singing and dancing and acting out stories, right? Well, again, that's opera, it's ballet, it's the modern musical, stage play, movie. But we've been doing that forever. As human beings, we love to sing and dance, and we love to tell stories. So we've been doing that since antiquity, and so a lot of great influence there. There's a word you've been using, and I want to pause on this one word for a moment. And it's always interesting to me as I listen to people talk, as I listen to people talk about history, whether people use the word they or we. And you've been using the word we a lot. In fact, I think you've been exclusively using the word we. And I do the same thing. Obviously, you're not an ancient Roman. Okay? You're a 21st century American. Why are you using the word we to talk about this stuff?
Well, because we're the same species and we have kind of the same interests. We've always loved music and we kind of had them at the same events. They were at funerals, weddings, banquets, religious ceremonies, gladiator fights, and we play it at basketball, football games, so it's kind of the same thing.
We do, and we play music at weddings, and there's music at funerals and other kinds of celebrations. And again, you mentioned sports as well. I think that's exactly right. I think when you start seeing those similarities across cultures and similarities across time, I don't see how you can say they, right? It's not us and them. It is we. It's we, the human race. And so that's what I think is so cool about it. So I definitely picked up on that because I tend to say the same thing there. So I'm curious, is there anything else, as you were doing some research on this and you were thinking about doing this podcast, was there anything that you thought, okay, I absolutely have to get this across. I've got to talk about this on the episode?
Well, there was this guy, and this isn't crazy important, but it's just really funny. There was this guy named Emperor Nero, and he organized and participated in a lot of music events.
Yes.
And I have a feeling they were rigged because they won a lot, but I don't know if this was right, but I'm pretty sure he was really bad too, because he would lock people in that stadium and make them listen.
Yes.
For hours.
Did you come across any in your research how some people tried to get out of his horrible shows?
Well, some women fainted. Some women who were pregnant pretended that they were going into labor.
Yes.
And once someone was actually in labor and having a baby, and he just kept on playing.
Oh heavens! People would pretend that they were dying to get carried out. Please get me out of this guy's horrible recital.
Yeah.
I mean, it was terrible. You can't really tell the emperor, right? Hey, buddy, your stuff is no good. So people were faking medical issues to get carried out. That's exactly right. So I've got another question here. As a music person yourself, all right, so you mentioned you're a choir person. What do you think it would be like if you could do the time machine thing? And if you could go back in time and perform in some way, presumably as a singer, with these other ancient musicians, what do you think that would be like?
Well, I think it'd be a lot different because I also read I saw a lot of the fact that their music didn't have harmony like ours. It was all single melodies. And in my own experience, I've found that songs with really complex harmony, and it's just more complex, more beautiful, and more fun to play. So I have a feeling it'd be very different.
It would be very different. Yeah, it'd be very different. Now, you bring in the harmony thing and all the structures of modern music and so forth. What do you think an ancient Roman musician, someone playing, the tibia, you mentioned the two the double reed sort of wind instrument. What do you think somebody like that would think if they saw a modern American orchestra, the full orchestra, right? You got your brass and you've got your winds and you've got your percussion, you got the whole 9 yards. What would they think?
I would argue they'd just be like, why did we not figure this out? Like, chords? What are chords? I want chords.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? They may take a look at like the clarinet or something and say, hey, I recognize that. It's not exactly what we've got, but they would recognize a similarity there.
Yeah,
so
it's not like completely different.
it's not completely different. Wow. So I understand that you also have found something in your research about what ancient Roman music actually sounds like?
Yeah. So there was this lady, Mary Ann Touchstone Glover, who was really interested in that, and she just like decided that she was gonna try and think about like and try and recreate ancient Roman music.
No, you're talking about a modern scholar, right? A modern person who tried to recreate the sounds of Roman music.
Yeah, she got like real ancient. She tried to like recreate the instruments and everything.
Okay. So she recreated the instruments, performed some music. Where is this? I mean, did she release like an album of this, or where does one find this?
Yeah, she has an album, and there's a link in this website that's just about her.
Okay.
And then it has like an album of a whole bunch of different songs.
Okay, and we can link that in what we call the show notes to this episode. Well, if that's the case, why don't we listen to something right now?
Sure. Wow, I've got to say that is something that
well, I'm willing to bet most people listening to this podcast have not heard music like that before. What did you think about it?
I thought it was really interesting. Just, again, the whole thing about no harmony. This is what she said. She said they should play this in movies like The Gladiator, just because, like, the music they play in the movie is just, like, it's atmospheric, but it's not that. That would, like, show you authentically what it would be like in that situation.
You know, I saw that in the article because you had sent me that article, and I read that, and again, we're going to link that in our show notes. I would agree, 100%, especially since she has done the scholarly work of recreating these sounds. Now, again, we're not 100%. I'm sure she would say the same thing. We're not 100% certain that this is exactly what it sounded like, but it's a reasonable recreation based on her study of music, her knowledge of music in general, and her study of artifacts, things that we've dug up, as you were mentioning earlier in the episode. Here's the thing, though. I think you can say that you appreciate something, and then you may or may not like it. Okay? So I can appreciate what we've heard. You can appreciate what we've heard. I don't think you're going to insult her. I don't think you would insult any ancient Roman if you say, I don't like it. Then again, you may actually like it. And I will tell you my opinion, but do you like it in addition to appreciating it?
Yeah. I'm not picky with music, but I do think it's really cool. And I think it's cool that they're like singing in a language, in the Latin language and everything, but I don't like it as well as modern music.
And fair enough. I think that's perfectly fine. I think people need to be able to say that. And on this album of hers, she's got some music that is purely instrumental, and then she's got some that is set to Latin lyrics that really are pieces. Some of them are actually pieces of poetry. One she's got on there might be the earliest nursery rhyme ever recorded in human history. She's got a piece that was some graffiti in the town of Pompeii that was destroyed by Mount Vesuvius. Turned those words from graffiti into the lyrics of her songs. So you've got some of that and some just instrumental. I got to be honest, I actually really do like it. And it's not just because I'm a Latin teacher. And I know everybody's going to say that. And they go, well, you've got to like it. No, that's not true. All right, there's certain foods, and we've looked at some recipes from the ancient world that, no, I would not enjoy eating that. Okay, I know what my tastes are. Actually, I like the music, I really do, and I'm definitely going to have it on one of my playlists. Certainly the kind of thing I'm going to be playing to students in class, perhaps before test or quizzes or that sort of thing. So again, thank you so much for sharing that with us and bringing ancient music to life.
The song you heard in this episode is Bacchus from The Music of Ancient Rome by Marianne Tedstone Glover. We want to thank Nick Tarbett of Integrity Publishing for allowing us to use Marianne's music, and a special thanks to Marianne Tedstone Glover for her incredible support of Isabel as she explores this topic, and for sharing her music with us and the world. Thank you for listening to Rostra. You may check out all our episodes on Spotify and follow us on social media at GuerinJCL. That's at GuerinJCL.